Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into a seriously chilling tale from our source material that perfectly illustrates the absolute horrifying dangers of the occult. We're looking at a deeply unsettling narrative today, one that blends human psychology, obsession, and ancient tantric rituals. It's an absolutely fascinating breakdown of what actually happens when we try to force the universe to give us exactly what we want. So, at the core of our mystery today is a classic, albeit terrifying, cautionary tale. It's about a broken heart, extreme desperation, and a supernatural miscalculation of truly epic proportions. You know, when people are pushed to their absolute emotional limits, logic usually just flies right out the window. But in this specific story, our protagonist didn't just lose his logic, he actively went looking for the most dangerous, hidden corners of the dark arts to forcefully fix his shattered reality. Okay, to really understand this mystery, we first need to get a handle on something called the Apsara Sadhana. According to the text, this is a highly complex, 27-day continuous tantric ritual. The ultimate goal here, to summon a celestial nymph, an Apsara, down from Swarglok or the heavenly realms, straight to the physical plane. If you pull it off, the seeker can ask her to grant their absolute deepest desires. But, and this is a massive but, the source material heavily warns that this is fraught with extreme peril. I mean, this is not a simple parlor trick. This beautifully illustrates the trap built into these practices. Seekers go into it expecting a gorgeous wish-granting entity to just gracefully appear before them, right? But the reality is completely different. The energy of the chanted mantras acts like a giant beacon in the dark. So, long before any celestial being arrives, the seeker is subjected to horrifying encounters with demonic entities. These dark spirits show up to aggressively test the seeker's patience, their sanity, and their focus, and if you break your concentration, well, you lose a whole lot more than just the ritual. Section 1. An obsession born in Mumbai. From small-town dreams to crushing reality. Let's set the stage with the human element here. We've got our guy, Akash. His transition from a quiet, conservative life in a small town in Bihar to the dazzling neon lights of Mumbai set up the perfect recipe for culture shock. And he is just totally swept off his feet when he meets a woman named Mona. The source describes her as modern, free-spirited, and fiercely independent. At first, it's this incredibly intoxicating romance, but over the course of a year, Akash's love morphs into this toxic, suffocating, and over-possessive obsession. It was like he was trying to trap a butterfly in a jar. And then everything just comes crashing down with one single sentence. Mona tells him, "Akash, I think it's not working. Let's move on." This crushing rejection proved a really fundamental truth. You simply cannot cage a free spirit. Mona felt suffocated, so she did what was best for her and walked away. But for Akash, man, these words were like a physical blow that he absolutely flat out refused to accept. Completely unable to process the rejection, his grief just spiraled into outright madness. The text actually notes that he spent sleepless nights desperately trying to figure out a way to get her back. He pushed way past your standard avenues like astrology and tarot card readings when they didn't offer any immediate hope. His desperation drove him to explore the very fringes of the dark arts. He was literally looking for a supernatural shortcut to bend Mona's free will back to him. Which brings us to the next part, the dangerous graveyard ritual, entering the cremation grounds without a guru. Get this, 5,100 rupees. Akash actually found a roadside poster for an occultist who demanded this exact, seemingly random sum, promising to magically bind Mona to him in just 11 days. But Akash, who is clearly fueled by this dangerous mix of arrogance and a few too many internet searches, decided he didn't even need to pay the expert. He figured, hey, if the instructions for the Apsara Sadhana are available on Google, I'll just bypass a guru and do the whole shebang myself. Having absolutely no true guide, he recklessly followed these exact steps he found online. He bathes in cold water after sunset, wraps himself in an unstitched red cloth, and walks barefoot into an actual cremation ground. He sits on a wooden plank by the river, and, crucially, he arms himself with heavy perfume and scatters jasmine flowers all around. Now, the text makes a huge point here. These strong, sweet scents are highly attractive to local ghosts and ghouls wandering the cremation grounds. He was basically ringing a dinner bell in the dark. The source material tracks his terrifying descent day by day, and it builds incredible tension. On day 1, he starts the intense chanting, but his mind is dangerously clouded with obsession for Mona, totally breaking the rule of spiritual purity. By day 10, the sensory contrast goes off the charts. It shifts from the sweet smell of his own perfume to an overwhelmingly suffocating scent.
Then, the ambient temperature drops so violently that his body physically turns blue from the cold. And finally, on the 10th night, the terrifying sound of demonic female laughter and heavy anklets echoes through the dead silence of the graveyard. Okay, moving to Section 3, the illusion of return, a miraculous knock at the door. So, here's where it all falls apart. Akash breaks the absolute cardinal rule of occult focus. Hearing those anklets, he totally thinks the beautiful Apsara has finally arrived. He opens his eyes, but instead of a celestial nymph, he's face to face with a horrifying 8-foot-tall demonic entity. Terrified out of his mind, and rightfully so, he completely abandons his sacred space, leaves all his ritual items in the dirt, and sprints home to lock himself inside. He foolishly thinks he can just, resume the ritual safely from his bedroom. But check this out. The very next night, at 9 p.m., things get incredibly eerie. Akash hears frantic knocking. His phone lights up. It's Mona calling. He throws open the door, and there she is. Mona is standing in his doorway, crying, pleading for forgiveness, and swearing her eternal, unbreakable love. She tells him that wherever they go, they're gonna go together. Overjoyed and fully believing his internet magic actually worked, Akash completely drops his protective mantras. He just abandons the sadhana entirely. Which brings us to the most chilling question of this entire explainer. Was it really Mona who knocked on his door that night? The crucial point here is all about perception versus reality. If he broke the ritual in the graveyard by opening his eyes and ran away in fear, completely abandoning his protective circle, who, or exactly what, was actually standing in his doorway promising to stay with him forever? Let's find out in Section 4, the Tantric's terrifying truth, the price of an unfinished sadhana. The fallout is immediate and devastating. By day 1, Akash has totally abandoned his ritual to obsessively talk to Mona. But by day 7, he falls mysteriously, deathly ill. We're talking completely bedridden, zero energy. By week 2, his terrified parents rush in from the village, but the absolute best doctors in Mumbai cannot figure out what's wrong with him. And then comes the shattering reveal. A colleague visits the hospital and confirms that the real Mona hasn't even been in India. She has been in the USA for the past month. Completely desperate, his parents drag him to a Siddha Tantric, a true, authentic master of the occult. The Tantric takes one look and delivers this chilling reprimand. Translated, he says, "Inviting such powers without proper guidance is akin to inviting your own destruction." He pinpoints exactly why Akasha's internet-taught DIY ritual was literally a death sentence. You simply cannot play with these energies unguided. The Tantric breaks down the spiritual mechanics of what actually went wrong. See, Apsaras don't just appear on command. The intense energy of those chanted mantras first attracts local, much lower-level entities. In this case, Akash attracted a Pishak, a highly malevolent, flesh-eating demon. Because Akash completely lacked the spiritual protection and guidance of a guru, he was wildly vulnerable to this entity, whose entire purpose was to test and break his focus. This brilliantly illustrates the horrific trap Akash walked right into. Think about it. Akash thought his ritual worked, and Mona magically returned to love him forever. But what actually happened? The Pishak, knowing Akash's deepest desires from reading his corrupted thoughts during the chanting, took Mona's exact form. It did this specifically to make him break his ritual and drop his guard. Once he did, the Pishak latched onto him, draining his life force and actually planning to drag him away into death within just 3 days. Which leads us to our final section, a miraculous escape, breaking the curse. So, saving this guy requires extreme intervention. The Siddha Tantric has to perform a rigorous, continuous 5-day yagya, a holy fire ritual. During this whole time, a very, very humbled Akash is forced to beg the celestial forces for forgiveness for his staggering arrogance. Ultimately, the Tantric successfully battles and banishes the demonic attachment, saving the young Nam's life just in the nick of time. But in a really eerie final twist from our source material, once Akash is fully healed, the Tantric just mysteriously vanishes without a single trace. Akash barely makes it out alive. And the text concludes by noting that this harrowing descent into the dark arts fundamentally changes him. He forever abandons that toxic obsession with Mona, finally realizing the hard way that you cannot control other people. Instead, he dedicates the rest of his life to genuine spirituality and true internal healing. It really serves as a stark reminder that true peace comes from within, not from forcefully trying to bend the universe to our whims.
Okay, as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a final, haunting thought based on a cautious, unbelievable journey. When our own human desperation pushes us to the absolute edge of the unknown, when we bypass wisdom for quick, supernatural fixes, who or what is truly answering our call in the dark? Think about that for a while. Thank you so much for joining me today as we broke down this incredible source material. Keep learning, stay curious, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.